Everyone believes the axe is a primitive weapon. Popular history tells you it belongs to peasants and raiders, useful only before swords and armor became sophisticated. Films reinforce it. Heroes wield gleaming blades, while axes are props for brutes and background fighters. The logic feels obvious. A sword looks refined. An axe looks crude. One cuts with precision. The other just chops. So when armor improves and gunpowder arrives, the assumption is simple: the axe should disappear. But medieval combat didn't work that way. Picture yourself standing in a packed formation, shoulder to shoulder, breath fogging the air. You carry what you can afford, what you can maintain, and what still works after hours of exhaustion. An axe fits that reality. Its construction is simple. A forged head with a hardened edge mounted on a wooden haft. No complex geometry. No long, brittle blade. If the haft breaks, you replace it in minutes. If the edge chips, you regrind it. That matters when campaigns last months and supply lines fail. Now consider armor. Most fighters wear mail over padding. Some add coats of plates or early plate elements. Shields are common, wooden cores, leather faces, sometimes metal bosses. The battlefield is noisy, chaotic, and close. You are not dueling. You are surviving. In this environment, the question is not elegance. It is whether your weapon can still injure through protection, fatigue, and fear. This is where the axe refuses to become obsolete. You raise the axe. Not overhead like in stories, but tight and controlled. The head is heavy, and that mass is not a flaw, it is the mechanism. When the edge strikes a shield, the force concentrates at a narrow line. Wood fibers split. The shield jerks backward. Even if the edge does not bite deeply, the shock transfers through the arm behind it. Because of this, the shield stops protecting the body for a split second. That opening is enough. Now the axe meets mail. Mail does not need to be cut to fail. The rings flex. The padding compresses. The impact drives energy into bone. You hear it, a dull, wet thud instead of a clean slice. Because the axe head carries mass forward, the blow stuns even when it does not penetrate. Therefore, damage occurs without a perfect cut. This is the first collapse of the myth. Axes do not rely on sharpness alone. They combine cutting and shock in a single strike. Against early plate, the interaction becomes even clearer. A sword edge skids across curved steel. An axe edge can do the same, but the real work happens next. The head pulls downward. Leverage engages. The haft acts as a lever arm, trying to rotate the target off balance. Because of this, the blow does not need to break armor to break posture. You feel it in your shoulders. The impact jars your arms. Your stance shifts. In formation fighting, that is deadly. Axes also hook. Beards and flanges catch shield rims, weapon shafts, and limbs. You do not trade blows, you control space. You drag a shield aside. You pull a man forward. You expose him to the spear next to you. Here is the moment the myth fully collapses. The axe is not less sophisticated than the sword. It is optimized for real constraints: armor, fatigue, numbers, and cost. This logic carries forward into the age of gunpowder. When swords become sidearms and firearms dominate, axes remain tools of war. Why? Because cutting plus shock still works against helmets, cover, and bodies not yet protected by modern armor. Because militias can be equipped cheaply. Because axes double as tools when battles pause. If you find this kind of myth-free medieval history as fascinating as we do, consider subscribing. Arms and Impact exists to explain how weapons and armor really worked, not how movies portray them. What this forced fighters to do was rethink technique. The real solution wasn't more force, it was smarter use of mass and leverage. Axes evolve. Heads become narrower for penetration. Beards extend for hooking. Poles harden to strike armor with blunt force. In poleaxe forms, the weapon becomes a system: spike, hammer, and edge working together. Tactics change with them. You strike to disrupt, not to kill instantly. You create openings for allies. You target arms, shoulders, and balance instead of chasing dramatic cuts. The unintended consequence is endurance. Axes remain relevant because they adapt to formations, to armor improvements, and to economic reality. They survive not by tradition, but by function. Return to the myth. The axe as a crude relic persists because simplicity is mistaken for inferiority. Because movies favor shine over physics. Because the quiet effectiveness of shock and leverage is harder to dramatize than a clean slice. The real historical truth is clear. Axes endured because they solved multiple problems at once. They were affordable, reparable, versatile. They injured through armor without needing perfection. They worked when fighters were tired, scared, and crowded together. Understanding this matters because medieval warfare was not about heroic weapons. It was about systems that functioned under pressure. Axes belonged to that system for centuries. If this changed how you see medieval weapons, hit like. Subscribe for more evidence-based history of arms, armor, and impact. Comment below, what weapon or myth should we break next?